Good morning, guys. It is the 19th of December, just before lunchtime on a very rainy Thursday morning. And as you will probably have noticed from the thumbnail for this video, this is going to be a short video by way of it being an update to the channel. I figure because it's been such a long time since I made the last Ripley Medulla podcast, was it 8 or 9 months now, or maybe even 10 months? I figured I owed the more enthusiastic subscribers to the channel an explanation as to why it's taking so long for me to get out the next video. So we're just going to quickly go over some of the things that have been going on in the background of my life for the last 18 months or 2 years, which have caused me to slow down tremendously as far as making videos is concerned. As some of you will already know, I make my living as a chef, and these days, because my time in restaurants and cafes as a chef is basically over, the hours are too long, the lifestyle is pretty rough, I now mostly just work as a chef in rest homes. And so 2.5 years ago, I think, I was hired by an international company that runs rest homes all over the world. And they've got quite a few rest homes here in New Zealand. And I was hired by them in one of their small rest homes, which only had 35 beds. Nice, easy job, nice and cruisy, and the hours suited me fine, and they pay very well. The rules about wages and the kind of pay that rest home workers get now changed enormously since the plague. Anyway, I worked in that small rest home for about 18 months. And while I was there, I already knew when they hired me that they were building a big rest home complex on the other side of Napier, the city where I live. Most of these rest home companies now are going away from small rest homes, and they're building these very large gated communities for the elderly, and sort of in the centre of all the individual villas or houses is the office, recreational area, community area, and a rest home usually. So I had promised myself that I wouldn't go back and work for one of these big facilities anymore, because I've worked for a couple of them already and I don't like them. They're bad news. But this company that I was working for was really good. At least in the small rest home that I was working in, they were really good. Plus they pay well, like I said. So I decided I would go over to the new facility, the big facility, and see what it was going to be like over there, and if it was okay, I was going to stay. And that was just over a year ago. We actually moved over there in November last year, 2023, and almost immediately I decided it was a bad choice to go there for various reasons. I mean, it was really nice working in a brand spanking new kitchen and in a big new facility and all that kind of thing, but the attitude of the company in that place changed dramatically from what it was like in the small rest home that I had been working in. For example, I've been working in rest homes on and off and as sort of a side hustle for almost 20 years. And back in the day, the rule was facility managers, which they usually call operation managers. Back in the day, they used to have a nursing degree, like they had to be a registered nurse, in order that they had a good understanding of all the medical side of looking after the elderly. But in these big facilities now, what they want is not someone with a nursing degree, but they want someone with either a business degree or a marketing degree, which tells you everything about their attitude and their orientation of thinking. It's all about the money, because it's not about the rest homes anymore. It's all about the villas or the independent housing which surrounds the main building. And those houses are worth an enormous profit to these big organisations. So anyway, in April this year, that little rest home of theirs that I had been working in, they sold it to another company. In fact, it's a New Zealand company, not an international company, who run, I think, 9 or 12 other small rest homes around New Zealand. And they specialise in giving elder care to what they now call severe dementia patients. So basically it's a secure rest home for the elderly who have serious mental illness, or who are mentally and physically ill, but are also like violent and difficult to manage or look after. So I applied for that job and got it, because like I've been doing this for years, so I can just about guarantee now that any cook's job that I apply for in a rest home, I'll get it, because of the length of time I've been working in rest homes and the amount of experience that I have. Also my qualifications and so forth as a chef. They just take one look and hire me, basically. So the thing about this little rest home that I've gone back to, is now owned by this new company, is that it's very old. It used to be a boys' home back in the 1970s, and it is in bad need of refurbishment. And so they are rebuilding the entire facility. They're gutting the inside, relining everything, laying new carpets, building new bathrooms, new plumbing, new electrics, and of course updating it with tech, computer cables and all that kind of thing. And the building has got an office area in the middle and has 2 long wings going out. And so they're doing one wing at a time. So they're refurbishing half of the building, and then they will move all the residents from the old half to the new half, and then they'll finish the second half of the building. But their instruction was to complete the kitchen first, so that the kitchen can keep running properly right through the whole process. So they started doing that, and there was also asbestos all through the building. So before the chippies could come in to start the building work, demolishing and then restructuring the inside of the first wing, they had to remove all the asbestos and all kinds of mucking around. So essentially the whole facility, or almost the whole facility, is like a construction site now. And so working there as a chef, delivering food and cooking food, is a bit of a mission. And it's been like that since April this year when I started over there. At the same time, ever since the plague and the way our government dealt with that situation, which was to force all school teachers and all health care workers to be vaccinated or lose their jobs, now auxiliary staff in rest homes, their positions are very difficult to fill, because cleaners, laundry people, gardeners and handymen and cooks kind of don't consider themselves to be healthcare workers like the nurses and the caregivers. But we were all forced to take the vaccine anyway. And so now it's very difficult to get auxiliary workers to work in these places in case the same thing happens again, because a lot of people didn't want to take the vaccination. And now that it's come out that there are all kinds of problems with the vaccine, that's caused a bigger issue. So since April, I have been the only cook in the kitchen, except for one of the housekeepers who was relieving me on my 2 days off. I was originally hired to work 4 days on and 3 days off, which I like, because it gives me time on those 3 days to go away canoeing or camping and to shoot and edit video all in 1 week if I have to. But I've had to be working 5 days a week, and then they bumped up my work days from 8 hours to 10 hours a day. So I have been, for the last 6-8 months or whatever, I've just been dog tired all the time from having to deal with the builders, having to deal with 10-hour long work days, and also having to deal with that extra work day every week. And of course, sometimes the girl who was relieving me couldn't get time off her job as a housekeeper to come into the kitchen, so I would have to do entire weeks for a couple of weeks in a row, sort of thing. Which means over the last year I've hardly done any canoeing. In fact, the last big canoe trip I did was last February, so it's almost a year since that happened, when Hermetism members got together, the three of us senior members, and canoed for a week and hung out and managed to get a bunch of business stowed away and some work and plans for Hermetism's near future. But since then I've only done a couple of small overnight trips, and the last one was about a month ago, I think, where I actually recorded this video, the channel update, and I recorded 2 podcasts worth of further episodes on the Ripley Medulla series. And finally being relieved that I had got all that video done and stowed away, I got back home and started editing that night, only to discover that I forgot that the last time I filmed a podcast, I actually had a problem with the audio on the GoPro and on the Rode boom mic. And I thought it was because I hadn't plugged a 3.5mm audio socket into the GoPro case properly. But this time I had everything set up properly, the plug-in properly, filmed all the stuff, got it home and found out that there was still a problem with the audio. So needless to say, that annoyed the hell out of me. That was like a month ago. And I've had to go out and buy a new microphone system. I actually think that Rode boom mic got a little bit wet at one time, so it's not surprising that it stopped working. I think it's still got water in it somewhere. So I bought a wireless lavalier mic, which I've got there, and it fits in the back of the GoPro, the receiver. And this video I'm filming now, this quick update, is really just to test that audio to make sure it's all working. And with any luck, I will get this uploaded tonight so that everybody knows what is going on. So the update on my work situation is that we finally have hired a second cook. He has no qualifications and no experience, and he's a foreigner from the South Pacific, Asian Pacific. So he also has no experience cooking Western style food, and I have had to spend the last month and a half basically giving him 3 years of culinary degree education in cooking Western food for rest homes. And he's actually turned out to be quite good, so as long as he's happy with the job and sticks to it, then I should only be working my normal 4 days on and 3 off from now on. So for about the last 3 weeks, that's what I've been doing. I've actually had 3 days a week off, and it makes a huge difference. For anybody who's never worked that kind of shift in a business, 3 days off instead of 2 is like having a whole week off by the time you get back to work. So things are smoothing out a bit. I've got more time, which is one of the reasons why I'm recording this now. And the only big hiccup at the moment is it's Christmas, of course, and that's the busiest time of the year in the kitchen. So another 2 weeks, Christmas and New Year will be over, and we'll be back into our normal kitchen routine. But I think it's on the 11th of January, I'm going away with 4 other guys. 3 of them are senior Hermetic members. 2 of the other ones are senior Hermetic members. We've got a Hermetic student coming with us, and we've got an old friend of mine who is involved in the Golden Dawn coming with us. So the other thing that's been taking up a lot of my spare time now is, of course, because there's 5 of us, we need a bunch of canoes and canoe gear to be taking. So this here, I think I've shown it in an introduction to a previous podcast. This is a open top Canadian style cedar strip wooden canoe. And it's an antique, and I bought it, I think, about 2 years ago. And it's been sitting here for most of the time while I've been researching on restoring it, because it's not actually in too bad of a shape. It's got no rot, no split wood anywhere, but the varnish and the fiberglassing in certain places needs a cleanup. So I've stripped it all down, sanded about 3/4 of it. Now the whole surface of the entire boat has to be sanded, which hopefully I'm going to finish today. and then it needs some fiberglassing on the stems. Those are the end pieces, because as the boat rides up on a bank, when you're like landing the boat, it rubs on the shingle or on the sand and slowly wears through the fiberglass, because there were no rub strips on the stems. It's worn right down to the wood, so all that has to be repaired so that it doesn't get any worse and the wood, stop the wood from rotting and being damaged. Plus the seats have to be repaired, and the entire boat needs a good varnish, basically. There are a few other things that I have to do to it, but for the last 3 months, 4 months maybe, I've been sanding and dismantling bits of it and finding epoxy, fiberglass. I had to buy some new tools to work on it. I had to do a bit of research on furniture restoration, because this is like restoring a piece of wooden furniture, in order to figure out how to do some of the jobs I have to do. I now have 3 weeks left, I think, before we hit the water. We are actually going to paddle the Wanganui River in New Zealand. It's on the west coast of the North Island, in other words, across the island from where I am. It's the third largest river in New Zealand, but I think it's the longest navigable river in New Zealand, because the other two, the longest and the second longest, have dams on them, I think. So it's a 5-day trip, and on that trip there'll be a ton of video made, hopefully, if I'm not too tired at the end of every day's paddling, because it's about 30 kilometres a day paddling for 5 days. I will also shoot some podcasts during that trip. So yeah, this is the reason why it's taken me so long to get back round to doing, I think we're up to the 3rd Ripley Medulla podcast. I was going to do one of them this afternoon. I still might, but I've got to get the sanding finished, because tonight or tomorrow morning I need to do the epoxy work, and then I've got like 3 or 4 layers of polyurethane to cover the whole boat in, and that's going to take me a week or two probably to get all of that epoxy and varnishing work done. Then I've got to get the seats back in. There's holes to fill and thwarts to make in order to get this boat ready. This is the boat that I'll be taking down the Wanganui. My other boat that you normally see in my videos, my Old Town Discovery, 2 of the other guys will be paddling in that, and there's a little bit of work that needs to be done on that. Plus, in order that everybody has enough paddles, I'm also making a couple of paddles at the moment, which is a bit of fiddly work, and I've done that before, but it's a bit of fiddly work to get everything nice and tidy and smooth, so that everybody has the right kind of gear. So once again, it's not that I've lost interest in this channel or that I have any intention of not bothering to continue the podcasts. It's just been a very busy and very tiring almost 2 years now, mainly due to my job, and now at the moment due to the fact that all of my spare time is being taken up getting ready for this canoe trip. So for those of you who are still paying attention and are interested and have been asking me questions in the comment section, thank you very much for your interest. Thanks for watching, and of course thank you very much for your patience with my filming and editing, which in itself is a bit of a big task. I don't have a very powerful laptop anymore like I used to have, so it's a little bit of a mission to edit an hour-long video, but I do love doing it when I have to sit down for a day and get an entire podcast finished. So hopefully this is going out tonight, and then unless I get some time over the next 3 weeks to do another one of the Ripley podcasts, you might not get another one of those until after we come back from the canoe trip. And with any luck, I might get 2 or 3 of them done on the canoe trip. At camp at night, or actually on the water as we're paddling, I might record some of it. And then hopefully 2025, the work situation and everything will get smoothed out completely. Hopefully the new cook stays and likes his job, and then I will have time to get back into a normal routine with the podcast of every week or every fortnight getting a podcast out again. So thanks everybody again for your patience, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, Sally, my dear, it's you I'd be kissing. Oh, Sally, my dear, it's you I'd be kissing. She smiled and replied, you don't know what you're missing. Oh, Sally, my dear, I wish I could wed you. Oh, Sally, my dear, I wish I could bed you. She smiled and replied, then you'd say I'd misled you. If all you young men were heirs on the mountain, if all you young men were heirs on the mountain,
I have to come in here and have a boil off.
how many young girls would take guns and go hunting? If the young men could sing like blackbirds and thrushes, if the young men could sing like blackbirds and thrushes, how many young girls would go beating the bushes? If all you young men were fish in the water, if all you young men were fish in the water, how many young girls would undress and dive after? But the young men are given to frisking and fooling. But the young men are given to frisking and fooling.